Where elegance meets insight, this is the podcast that crowns every moment with beauty and brilliance. You're now listening to the Spicy Tiara official podcast.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're diving into some incredibly powerful source material. It's a really deeply personal account.
Yeah. Takes a global issue, female genital mutilation, FGM, and just brings it right into sharp focus through one person's story.
Exactly. We've got this transcript.
Yeah.
It's from a young woman from Somalia. She shared her story quite publicly, actually.
Right, in a forum where she was aiming to, educate people, raise awareness. That was her clear mission.
And that's our goal, too, for this deep dive. We want to really understand her vision, her voice, which is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And face the shocking reality she talks about FGM still happening in Somalia, all through her own experience.
Yeah, as a survivor. And we're not just listing facts here. The aim is to get to the core emotional truth, the call to action in her words.
She's not speaking about it from a distance, is she?
No, not at all. She's speaking from right inside it.
She represents Somalia, yes, but she also founded something called the Femo Initiative Foundation.
Right. And she's very open that this whole project, this foundation, it came directly from one of the worst moments of her life.
And that's what makes this source so different, I think. She doesn't just give statistics, although there's one statistic that, wow.
Yeah, it sticks with you.
But she shares her story and other stories in really stark detail, unforgettable detail.
Puts a human face on it all, which is devastating but necessary.
So let's get into it. Her story. She introduces herself as Zay Jama, representing Somalia.
Mm-hmm. And she gives some background first. Childhood as a refugee, fleeing her country, climate issues, conflict.
Right. She mentions riding on camels, looking for safety. Paints quite a picture.
It really does, and it shows that resilience, Overcoming hardship is part of her story already. Eventually, her family got to the UK.
Rebuilt their lives. She got her education. But this presentation, this source material, it's from her time at Miss World.
Right, exactly. And she says her purpose there was tied directly to her foundation, the Femo Initiative.
And she stands up there not just as a voice, but specifically identifying herself.
Yeah.
As a survivor of FGM.
Yeah. She says she's speaking for the millions of girls whose voices were silenced. Girls who never got the chance to live freely.
She knows that feeling, she says. Having your rights taken, feeling powerless, being told your voice doesn't matter.
It's interesting how she frames her main goal, though. She genuinely believes a lot of people just don't know what FGM actually is.
So her aim was education first. Raising awareness.
And then she takes us into the procedure itself. And this is where it gets incredibly difficult. But she insists the world needs to hear it, her own experience, firsthand.
She was 7. Just 7 years old. Playing outside like any kid.
Yeah, can you imagine? Picked up, clothes ripped off, taken to her room, 3 women waiting.
And she stresses this point, these women were not doctors. No medical training at all.
Just tradition, passed down. And the tools they used. Blades, scissors, she says, old tools.
Cutting off her clitoris.
Yeah.
Slicing away the outer labia. The pain.
She remembers screaming because there was no anesthesia, nothing.
Just blood. And she calls it loud silence.
Wow.
She cried, begged them to stop. But they told her, be quiet, be brave, be proud.
Because it was tradition.
Tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after the cutting, they stitched the skin back together.
With thick thread, she mentions, or even a thorn, leaving just this tiny hole, barely enough for urine or blood to pass.
She names it specifically infibulation.
Which is, as she points out, one of the most severe forms of FGM. Horrific.
So what happens then? Afterwards, she describes being laid in a dark room, her legs tied together, tightly, for days.
Just lying there, bleeding, constantly bleeding. She said she had nothing with her, no toys, just a piece of charcoal.
And she used it to draw on the wall, drawing her dreams away, she says, just to keep herself alive somehow.
And this period after the cutting, that's when so many girls don't make it. They bleed to death.
That moment, she says, it changed everything. Her childhood just ended right there.
She survived, but she emphasizes so many girls didn't, before her, after her.
And this leads her to reflect on the generations, doesn't it? She says she stands for the joy her own mother couldn't experience.
Yeah, how for generations, mothers, grandmothers, they endured this pain in silence, taught that suffering was part of being a woman, that this was normal.
But she pushes back so hard against that. It's not normal. It's not okay. It's not destiny.
She knows her past can't change, but her future. And the future of other girls. That she will fight for.
Even knowing there are consequences for speaking out, she keeps going. She gets messages, she says, from little girls in Somalia who are scared they're next.
Which brings us to that statistic you mentioned earlier, the one that just floors you.
98%. She states that 98% of women in Somalia have undergone female genital mutilation.
98. And the other 2%, she says they're infants, too young to have been cut yet.
Think about that. An entire nation of women, essentially, who have endured this.
Just staggering.
So through her foundation, she's working on the ground, public speaking, teaching mothers.
Yeah, teaching them that love shouldn't cost a child their body or their soul. That you can honor tradition without this harm.
And back in the UK, she's built this sisterhood. Survivors, mostly close friends.
They share the pain, they heal together, but crucially, they use their voices together, fighting for the next generation.
Protecting girls from those blades. It's a simple truth she puts out there. No little girl should go from playing happily to bleeding in a dark room.
And she sees her platform like being Miss Somalia, not just about beauty, it's about responsibility, about truth.
She wears the crown, she says, for two specific girls, Fun and Dia.
Yeah, she interviewed their families, girls full of life, full of dreams, and both of them bled to death from this.
Their hearts stopped, she says, because someone thought tradition mattered more than their lives. Their bodies just couldn't survive what hers barely did.
So her message is it's unwavering. Whatever the consequences, she'll keep fighting until there's change, until the world talks about this.
Now, the source also included some commentary that came after her presentation.
Right, which adds another layer. It really emphasizes that her voice, this truth she's telling, it needs to be heard, especially, it says, by grandmothers and mothers in Somalia.
And there's a very direct statement made in that commentary. This custom is wrong. Full stop.
Not really up for debate, just wrong. It kind of poses the question for any tradition, doesn't it? Is this actually okay? Is it right?
And it makes that point about shame. There's no shame in having been wrong about something you were taught.
Exactly. The shame, it suggests, is in not putting it right once you understand. The focus should be on explaining things respectfully, kindly, carefully.
Yeah, not making women feel bad for believing what they were told was right. Because you don't get changed by just telling people they were bad.
Right. They maybe just didn't understand the harm. So the task now is helping them understand. Working together, the commentary suggests, to save other girls.
And it specifically says this isn't politics.
No, very clearly not politics. It calls it a social issue, a form of cruelty, totally unacceptable, unnecessary.
Little girls don't choose this. Grandmothers need to learn the new way. You can't just say, because it happened to us, it has to happen to you.
It has to be put right. Together. That's the message there.
So for you listening, hearing this account, this firsthand story, what does it mean? How does understanding this perspective, difficult as it is, maybe challenge how you think about culture, tradition, human rights?
Yeah, this source really hits home both how deeply rooted this practice is, but also the incredible power of one survivor's voice fighting against it. It really suggests that change has to come from within the community.
And not through shame, but through understanding, education.
Exactly. So thinking about that number again, 98%. Only 2% of women in Somalia haven't undergone FGM, and they're just babies waiting. It really forces the question, doesn't it?
What's the ultimate responsibility here for people within Somalia? Yes, but also for the global community. How do we make sure the next generation is safe?
And maybe the deepest question she leaves us with is, how can tradition be honored, genuinely honored, without destroying a child's body or their spirit?
A profound question, absolutely. Something raised by her fight, something for all of us to really think about.